Welcome to the Arun Church podcast, where our mission is bringing life to everyone, everywhere, every day. Each podcast episode features the latest talk from our church, which are released weekly. We're passionate about Jesus, love to worship together, and are committed to changing our community for the better. Connect with us at arunchurch.com. So today we are looking at Exodus 3. We're continuing our base camp series and we're looking at the mountains. There's some mountains in this, and we're looking at Moses and what happened to him. I'm gonna read it to you, so follow it with me if you want to. Moses was shepherding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the west end of the wilderness, and he came to a mountain of God, Horeb. And the angel of God appeared to him in flames of fire, blazing out of the middle of the bush. And he looked, and the bush was blazing away, but it didn't burn up. And Moses said, "What's going on here? I can't believe this. Amazing. Why doesn't the bush burn up?" And God saw that he had stopped to look. And God called to him from out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Yes, I'm here. I'm right here." And God says, "Don't come any closer. Remove your sandals from your feet. You're standing on holy ground." And then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face. He was afraid to look at God. And God said, "I've taken a good long look at the affliction of my people in Egypt. I've heard their cries for deliverance from their slave masters. I know all about their pain. And now I come to help them, pry them loose from the grip of Egypt and get them out of that country and bring them into a good land, a land with wide open spaces, a land lush with milk and honey. The Israelite cry for help has come to me, and I've seen for myself how cruelly they're being treated by the Egyptians. It's time for you, Moses." I've added the Moses bit. "It's time for you to go back. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the people of Israel, out of Egypt." And Moses answered God, "But why me? What makes you think I could ever go to Pharaoh and lead the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And God said, "I'll be with you. And this will be the proof that I am the one who sent you. When you have brought my people out of Egypt, you will worship God right here on this very mountain." The mountain he's standing on, the mountain that Moses is meeting God on right now, is the one that he says, "I'm going to meet you back here." Then Moses said to God, "Suppose I go to the people of Israel and tell them, 'The God of your father sent me,' and they ask me, 'What's his name?' What do I tell them?" And God said to Moses, "I am who I am. Tell the people of Israel, 'I am sent me to you.'" And God continued with Moses, "This is what you're to say to the Israelites. God, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This has always been my name, and this is how I will always be known." And so we have this most amazing story of Moses. So after last week, we have Moses who he was meant to be killed as a baby. He was meant to have died, but he didn't die because people stood up and looked out for him. And then he was taken to the Pharaoh's palace. We'd have all thought, wouldn't we? You remember Joseph? Remember what happened to Joseph? Remember that he was brought to the palace and he had the favor of the Pharaoh, and that's why things went so well with him. You'd have thought that God was going to do the same with Moses. Maybe his original plan was to. I don't know. But there's Moses. He's in the palace. He's 40 years in that palace. He has been given everything, and then he messes up, completely and utterly messes up, because he kills one of the Egyptians. And he thinks that by killing this Egyptian, that the Hebrews, that the Israelites will realize that he is on their side. But they don't think that. They think, "You hypocrite, killing this man." They don't like him. The Egyptians don't like him. Nobody likes him. Everybody's against him. Pharaoh wants to kill him. The Israelites are against him. He just has blown it. He goes to the well. We talked about that last time. And he he marries a lady, and this is 40 years after that. Moses is 80. And Moses is by himself in the desert with some sheep. That's what's happened with Moses. He has that thought that he would rescue the children of Israel, that thought that he would deliver and bring freedom, that thought is miles away from him right now. He's in a desert by himself with some sheep, having blown it for years. And there he is. He hasn't, I don't know if he's low, or the mountain actually means despair that he is on. I don't know if he's low or if he's just completely doesn't care. I don't know if he's just lost all hope. I don't know if he is just thinking, well, God's finished with me. Must have, mustn't he? God hasn't got anything more to do with me. And then in the middle of this, there is a bush that is burning. Now, the remarkable thing about the bush is that there would have been bushes burning all the time in that area. Okay, it's a desert. I mean, there was a bushfire, wasn't there, in England down the road, I think. But this isn't very common for us. So we read this story with Western eyes. We read it with our eyes and think, oh, that's an interesting thing to happen. But I don't know that it was that interesting for Moses. I think that it was an ordinary thing to happen. A bushfire was an ordinary thing to happen. If you notice, it's Moses who sees the bushfire, and then he goes over to it. He says he sees that there's something different about this. He sees that there's a miracle going on in quite an ordinary event. And he is curious about that. So he goes up and he sees that though there is a bushfire, and that is normal, this bush is not burning up. It's not burning up. It's like nothing's happening to it. It's alight, but it's still staying how it is. He can't quite believe it. He starts to see a miracle in the ordinary. He sees an absolute amazing miracle just in the ordinariness of his life. He wasn't at a meeting when God spoke to him. He wasn't in the tabernacle, or he wasn't in a place where everybody else was. He's in a desert by himself, and he meets with God. He's given up, really. He's given up on himself. He's given up on any thought that he would bring freedom to anyone in any way. And God meets him there. In the ordinary things of his life, he meets him in that very place. I think that's absolutely fascinating. Do we have eyes in our lives to see sometimes the miracles in the ordinary things that happen? Do we notice, do we give the attention to God about the things that are going on just in our ordinary lives? And do we think, I think I'll look a little bit closer into that ordinary thing that's going on, because I think that God maybe is doing something. I think maybe there's a miracle going on in that place. You know, I often think that, and I say this often, and I think this often, when I walk down the street, I can hear the noise of the traffic, but I have to take time and effort to listen to the birds, but they are singing. The birds are singing. They sing all the time. And yet sometimes I don't hear them. What do we pay attention to in our ordinary, everyday lives? What do we give attention to as we go through our Monday to Sunday lives? Because it's important. Moses gave his attention to what God was doing, and he noticed. What are we noticing? Because sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes we have to look a bit harder. Sometimes we need to really give our attention to what God is doing. Barbara Taylor Brown, who I love, says this: people encounter God under shady oak trees, on riverbanks, at the tops of mountains, and in long stretches of barren wilderness. God shows up in whirlwinds, starry skies, burning bushes, and perfect strangers. When people want to know more about God, the Son of God tells them to pay attention to the lilies of the fields and the birds of the air, to women needing bread and workers lining up for their pay. Whoever wrote this stuff believed that people could learn as much from the ways of God from paying attention to the world as they could from paying attention to Scripture. Earth is crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God, but only the one who sees takes off their shoes. Let us be people that see what God is doing. Might not always be obvious, but let us see what he is doing. And let us be the people that take off our shoes when we do see what he's doing. Moses, he was standing on holy ground. He just recognized, he just became aware he was standing on holy ground. He took off his shoes in reverence, in recognition, in response to what he saw God was doing and speaking to him about. So the first thing I want to say to us is, what is going on in your ordinary, everyday life that you need to take notice of? What miracles are there happening every day that you haven't even seen? What is God speaking to you about in your ordinary, everyday life? The second thing that has really struck me and speaks to me is knowing that God meets Moses when I think Moses had lost his confidence, completely lost his confidence. It says in Acts that Moses was powerful, had grown up powerful in speech, and let's see what it says. It grew up powerful in speech and in words. And here we have Moses later on in this passage saying, I can't speak. I'm no good at it. I'm poor at speaking. I'm not good at speaking. Moses had learned how to speak so well when he was in the palace. Now he's like, I've lost all my confidence. I don't know how to speak. I don't know how to do it. I'm nothing. Don't you know, God, that I murdered that bloke? Don't you know that I've messed it up? Don't you know that you finished with me, God. It must be over. This must be the end for me. And God doesn't come at this point. I'm really interested in this. He doesn't come in this point. He says, Moses, Moses. There is significance in him saying Moses, Moses. He says it twice. Whenever God has something significant to say to somebody, he often uses their name twice. You'll find it. Abraham, Abraham. Samuel, Samuel. Jacob, Jacob. Saul, Saul. Peter, Simon, Simon, Peter, Simon, Peter. He speaks their name, Martha, Martha. He speaks the name twice. And he says this to Moses, Moses, Moses. But do you know what he doesn't do? He doesn't then say, Moses, now listen here. I think I know you've messed up. I know everything's gone wrong, but I think you're quite a good bloke. I really like you. I love you. I think you're really brilliant. I think you messed up a bit. You said sorry, but I think you're really great, Moses. I think you're brilliant. No. He doesn't say that. He says, do you know how great I am, Moses? Do you know what I'm like? Can't you see who I am? Can't you see that I am? I am all that you need. I'm going to be with you. I'm everything. I'm faithful. I'm good. I'm just. Look at who I am. Because you're coming with me, Moses. You're with me. Don't worry about who you are. Worry about who I am. And it's in finding out who God is that we find out who we are. This is the way that it goes. It's in looking at God. It's in finding out who he is that we think, oh, that's who I am then. It's such a weird thing that we live in a place where the mantra is often, look after yourself, look out for you, look out for, it's all over the internet, it's everywhere. Look out, who's going to look out for anyone? Look after yourself. That is not the gospel's way. That is not what Jesus said. He doesn't say that. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart. Look at him. Look at him, who he is. And love others as you love yourself. Love others. It's in loving others that we find out who we are. That's the paradox of it all. That's how we find out who we are, by giving our love and ourselves to other people. And so he reminds him of who God reminds him. I am God. I'm going to look after you. I'm going to go with you. And he also reminds him of the pain that his brothers and sisters are going through. He doesn't come and say, Moses, bless you, I'm sorry about everything that's happened. He says, look at the suffering over here, Moses, and remember who I am. Look at the suffering, look at the people who need to be freed here, and remember who I am. And remember, I'm coming with you. Whatever you need, I am going to be there. I am going to be with you. I can remember in my life, there have been times when I have wondered if God has finished with us. Where Tim's been talking about Big Church Day Out, but when we were young, we had 2 children, and we had the opportunity that God gave us to give up everything, to give up our job. Tim to give up his job, and I didn't have one, but Tim to give up his job and to go on the road and become a band that went everywhere in the world and went and brought worship and help people worship and help people find freedom. And it was the most amazing experience to have done that. So Tim, he left his job and we left everything. He left everything and he went on the road and went with the band Delirious around the world. It was an amazing time in our lives. But we really felt called to it. We felt like there was a vision in us. We felt I could see it every day. He would sometimes be in Hawaii and, the children would be being sick at home. But I knew in myself, this is the vision that God has for us. This is what God's asked me to do. This is what God's asked us to do. And so therefore, I will do it with all my heart. And that's what we're going to do. And we ran down that road with all of our heart and with all of our passion because we wanted to see people come to know God all around the world. That's what we were dedicated to. And one day we knew that was going to stop. And the band was going to stop. And I can't even describe to you how that felt at that moment. I can remember thinking it wasn't the loss of a job so much as the loss of a vision, the loss of a dream, the loss of what you thought you were going to do for the rest of your life. You now were no longer going to do that. It was a bit like a train that's going 100 miles an hour and it crashes. It wasn't like a slow thing. It wasn't like an easy thing. It was like crashing into something and thinking that that's the end. And I can remember thinking to myself, well, we haven't got a plan B. I don't know what Tim's going to do because Tim doesn't know how to do. He doesn't know how to do. He hasn't got a profession. He plays the piano. What's he going to do? What do you do when you've played the piano for 17 years? What's the options? We didn't ever have a plan B. We didn't know what the plan B was. We had no idea what we were going to do. It felt to me that day as if we'd been pushed off the cliff and we were falling. And I was thinking, I hope somebody's going to catch us because are we just going to fall to the ground? And then we went on a journey, both of us. We went on a journey of letting go. We let go. We let go of a lot of things, and we went on that journey together. And do you know what? God did the most amazing things in that. So it did feel like falling. It did feel terrible. It did feel, it was full of pain. And I can remember people coming up to me and saying, it will be all right, and thinking, when people say to you, it will be all right, and you're like, it doesn't feel all right. It feels terrible. I just feel terrible. I feel like I'm at the end. And amazingly, a guy came up, met with Tim, and this guy had a lot of money. And he said to him, I've got a dream to see, a festival happen, and I've got a lot of money. And then another guy came up, and he had... this is a very simple way of putting it, but Harry Goring down the road said, I've got some land. I've always dreamt of having a festival on my land. I've always dreamt of there being something more than, sheep on my land. And I've got some land. Do you want to use my land? a man came with some money, a man came with some land, and God did something new. God did something completely new that was completely beyond what we ever thought or dreamt or imagined. But the vision was this. I'm amazed at God because the vision to see people set free and to see people become Christians and to see people liberated and loved and all of those things is still the dream, still the vision. It just turned out differently. God just did a different thing with us. He did something completely different. And I'm so grateful. And then I look at Moses and I think, look what God did with Moses. Thought everything was over. Thought everything was finished. Look what he did with Moses. Moses, who maybe had no confidence. Moses, who had lost his confidence. Moses, who had lost his vision. Moses, who had lost the man that he was called to be, he was born to be, completely and utterly had lost him. And God says, remember who I am and remember the people that you're going to go and set free. My last thing that I want to say is this. I wonder how many people, how many freedom fighters we have in this room right now that are in the desert. I wonder how many people that God called you to fight for somebody, called you to fight for freedom in this world and in this nation. And maybe you just think, I've just completely blown it. Or maybe you think, I just can't do that. Or maybe you just think, I've lost my confidence. Maybe God's asking you to go and get a new job and you just think, I just can't do that. I just can't. I haven't got the confidence. I can't do the interview. I can't do that. And God's saying, come on, you can do this. Out of the desert for you and into freedom fighting, into the place that I called you. I wonder how many people are in this room that are freedom fighters, that are really sitting right now in the desert. There's so many things that we're called to fight for. And freedom as children of God is of course, the main thing. You know, when I think of those children of Israel that were dying in slavery, somebody needed to stand up. Somebody needed to say, no, I'm not going to have that. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for you to get out of that place of slavery. Is there something in you that knows that God has called you to fight for somebody else's freedom? It might be in all sorts of ways. What really makes you buzz? What really makes you think, I am going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for you to be free. It might be that when you watch the injustice and the wars that go on in our world, there's something that rises in you as you watch that and you think, I am not happy with this and I am going to fight for those people. Maybe that's on your knees. Maybe that's in a way that you think, I'm going to give in this way. There are so many ways that we can fight for freedom for other people. Maybe in you feel completely passionate about fighting for freedom from people with poverty. We have so many people around us in complete poverty who have nothing. Maybe there's something in you that says, I am going to fight for those people. And maybe what you do is you join the befrienders in CAP. You join a group where you can pray. You join a group where you can really work those things that you passionately feel through. Maybe you feel that you want to you feel that you would love to see people free from addiction. If you feel that and that's absolutely grips you and you think, I hate seeing people that are addicted to alcohol or pornography or drugs and I'd love to see that change. Well, go on a course and find out about it. Go on a course and educate yourself. Go on a course and join a prayer group. Start something that says, I am a freedom fighter and I'm going to fight for these people. You might feel really angry and that you want to see people free from sickness. There's so much sickness. What does the world need freeing from? The world needs freeing from so many things, addiction and sickness and poverty and oppression. But maybe you think, I want to see people free from sickness. Okay, well, go and pray with the healing prayer group and pray that people get free. Pray for anybody that you find. Educate yourself on praying for people that are sick. What can you do to pray for those that are sick. Maybe you want to become a doctor or a nurse or a paramedic because you have just such a passion about seeing people free from sickness. Maybe you want to see people free from oppression and you just think, I'm going to learn about that. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to join a prayer group. I'm going to start something because I'm a freedom fighter and I want to see people free from oppression. What is it that is in you that says, I want to see that person free? Because everyone in this room is called to fight for other people's freedom. We're all called to fight for somebody else's freedom. We're all freedom fighters. We're all the people that can actually stand up for somebody else and see freedom come because of what you've been called to do, what you've been asked to do. And so maybe it's domestic violence. Maybe you just think, I feel called to see people free from domestic violence. Well, train in it. Do something. There are so many things that we can do. But all I would encourage us right now is to say, you're a freedom fighter. Where are you? Are you in the desert? Are you in the desert? What's God saying to you? What's God saying to you? One of the best things, I know that I'm a freedom fighter because I love seeing freedom. And I love seeing freedom in people. I love praying for people and seeing something happen that sets somebody free. I love it when people feel free to be exactly who God called them to be. You know, every gift that you have been given in this room, it wasn't meant for you, was it? It was meant for others. If you think about it, if you're an amazing dancer, right, and God gave you this amazing gift of dancing, do you think that's for you? Or do you think it's to share with everybody? What if God made you an amazing cook? Absolutely amazing cook. Wouldn't it be sad if you just cooked for yourself? Don't you think? It would be a terrible waste of what God gave you. What if you're the most amazing? You need to cook for everybody else. You need to cook for others. What if God, made you an amazing singer? Well, then it would be so tragic if you just sung in a room by yourself. What you've got in you is for other people, everyone. What God's put in you is for others. That's why he's given it to you. And he reminds us today, go, remember who I am, and remember what God has put in you as a fighter for freedom. Okay, let's, bands, come on up. We're going to finish there. We're going to take communion together and we're going to remember exactly who God is in this moment and in this time. At the very end of Moses, they took Passover together. It was of the freedom meal. They took the freedom meal together. We're going to take communion together and we're going to remember that God set us free by sending his son Jesus to come and die for us. And we're going to remember as well who God is in this moment and who he says we are. So let's close our eyes together, shall we? Just listen to whatever God would say to you right now, whatever he wants to say. You might be a freedom fighter in the desert right now. Somebody who thinks, maybe you think, I'm too old. Maybe you think, I'm too young. Maybe you think, I just can't do that. I just can't, just like Moses. He said that. I can't do that. I can't speak like that. I can't do that. What's God stirring you in your heart? Maybe it's a new job. And you think, I just can't do that. I can't go there, God. And God says, remember who I am. Because I'm saying you can. Go on. Maybe there's something that maybe you think, none of my children are going on with God. And I just feel like, it's the end. God says, it's not the end. It's not the end. What you think's the end isn't the end. This isn't the end. For Moses, it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. He was 80 years old, everyone. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning of I'm still calling you into that place. I'm still calling you to fight for freedom. I'm still calling you to do things that maybe you think, I can't do that. I just can't do that. I haven't got the strength to do that. God says, remember who I am. Remember who I am. So just in this moment, Father God, we thank you that you remind us when we take bread and wine. You remind us of who you are. You remind us of what you did. You remind us of your sacrifice. You remind us of freedom. You remind us that we are freedom bringers. You remind us of who you are, Jesus, your sacrificial love that you poured out for us so that we could be free, so that we could live life and that others around us could be free and live life. And we are so grateful to you, Father. We're so grateful for this freedom meal. We're so grateful, Father God. And so just where you are, if you have communion with you, just there is some here at the front. But just take communion in the quietness of where you are. And there's a wafer at the top. And some juice. Just in the quietness of you, where you are, just say thank you to Jesus and respond to him. You might want to right now take off your shoes. You might want to just say, I'm listening to you, God. I'm listening to you in this moment.